Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Start Again with Shauna Lee. Listen, I am introducing you to a new friend today. Her name is Ashley, and she is a maternal wellness cheerleader, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. Ashley, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So perhaps that's a great place for us to start is tell everyone what that is and what you do. And if you want to give your little bio with the version of how have you embraced this idea of starting again, that typically will frame our conversation really well.
Yes, so I've embraced the concept of starting again by recognizing the power of resiliency and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. So I am a survivor. I'm a maternal wellness cheerleader, and I'll tell you what that means in just a minute. But my most important role in life is that I am a mom and bonus mom to 7 not so little kids anymore. They range in age from 19 down to 8, and we're a Brady bunch. We are a big old blended family. So that in itself is a whole episode of starting over.
Yes, it is.
But really what I'd love to focus on talking with you about is how I started over to become a maternal wellness cheerleader. So I am a doula, I am a yoga teacher, I'm a childbirth educator, and I'm a life coach. And most of my clients are moms, although I do work quite a bit with teenage girls, and I love that because it's almost like the prequel to the work that I do with moms. It's like, oh, we can actually get in there before all of this happens.
Yes.
But my heart of heart really is for moms, and that's because my own life has been such an odyssey of change and challenge and adversity and abuse, and even in all of that, truly transformative experiences. And that's really shaped the perspective that I have on the world today, which is that if moms had more support, the whole world would be so much better.
So much better. I cannot agree more. So tell us a little bit about your business and what that means to be a maternal wellness cheerleader.
That's right. So there's a couple aspects of being a cheerleader, but it really can be summed up with, okay, so I have to say I'm a word nerd.
Mhm.
There's a word for that. It's called being a logophile.
I love it.
So if that doesn't tell you that I'm a word nerd, then the fact that 2 of my kids' names are palindromes, which are spelled forward the same as they are backwards. So I'm a big word nerd, and part of that is that I love acronyms. My brain is coming up with acronyms all the time. So in order to become a maternal wellness cheerleader, it's very easy. We cheer moms on. That means we champion. Champions are a symbol of determination and success, really. We perseverance, dedication, all of these things that we think of when we think of champions, we need to do that for the moms in our community. The H is for health. We often think about health as like, oh, we got to make sure mom gets in for her once a year annual. Now sometimes it's like 3 years if your tests are fine. So like we're not doing a good job on health. It involves so much more than our physical bodies. E and E are for encouragement and empowerment. And I think that these are really simple things that everybody can do. So you don't have to become a yoga teacher or a doula or work with moms to be a cheerleader. You can choose to give the mom with a kid who's melting down at the grocery store an encouraging look, like a smile and a, hey, mama, you got this, as opposed to a dirty look like, make your kid be quiet.
Yes.
And then empowerment, like this whole idea of you can give somebody a fish, and they can eat for a day, or you can teach them how to fish and then they can feed themselves forever. So I think a lot of times moms are capable. They're for sure capable of so much, but we're often not empowering them to make their own informed decisions. The last part of cheer, I think, is the most important. It's so important, actually, that it shows up in both of my acronyms, and it's receiving. We have to teach moms how to receive. And this is why I love working with teenage girls, especially teaching yoga, because they've got this idea that yoga is a specific thing and they come to do it. And then I tell them, wait, just take a minute and ask yourself what you need, and then decide to give it to yourself. So learning how to receive. And it doesn't come naturally to most moms.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I love that that is part of your acronym, because you're right. It's one of the things that over and over again, moms especially have a hard time with, because, we're nurturers, and it's up to us to make sure everybody else has what they need, that we tend to not do that for ourselves, or even give ourselves permission to receive it when we know we need it.
That's right. And so as a cheerleader, we create opportunities for moms to receive. We don't add shame and guilt, which moms already have plenty of.
All by themselves. Yep.
This is how we help moms learn to receive.
I love it.
And we do things that are truly helpful, because have you ever had anybody come in and let me do your dishes, but you're like, I don't have any dishes today, but laundry would be great. Yes. It hasn't been touched in a week. So things that are actually helpful
and needed. Yeah. No, I love that. Well, so when you look at your story, and you've talked a little bit about your journey and how transformative it is, and you've alluded to some really difficult pieces of that story, what do you think inspires you most about your own story?
What inspires me the most about my story and about other people at the same time, it's like a universal rule for me. It's the power, the enduring power of hope in our humanness. So in just showing up, however the day presents, and still having hope through all of that humanness. And I think that it's kind of innate in our human nature to, even when we have experienced horrifying things, to still hope that the future is going to be better. And then the other thing that I think is the most inspiring part of my journey is that I learned about the transformative impact of support. So that's my other acronym that I get all up on my soapbox about, is support.
Oh, let's talk about it. Yes.
So I think, despite facing the challenges that I have, and the Cliff's Note version of my life is that I am one of 10 children. I grew up in a big old blended family, Brady Bunch, and I was quick to leave because it was a very rigid household, and I was raised in a high demand religion. So I had a lot of deconditioning that had to happen, but I became a mom really early in life. I was 22. It's not like I wasn't 16, but it was very early for my life trajectory. I had not finished school, and being a mom took up everything that I had to give. And I really feel like I didn't give myself enough time to become a person.
Oh, I feel that one so much, because I also was a very young mom. I had my first daughter at 18. And at that age, you don't even know who you are yet. And you're right. It requires so much of, it requires you to give so much of yourself before you even know who you are. I totally interrupted you because it resonated with me as well.
No, that's perfect. It really resonates with a lot of moms. And what I found is that the age is kind of a side note, but becoming a mom. So listen, the definition of trauma, my educational background is in psychology with an emphasis on trauma. And the definition of trauma is experiencing something that overwhelms our ability and our resources to cope. And if that doesn't describe the transformation into motherhood for most women,
yes, regardless of your age, you're right.
regardless of your age, your social status, it's going to overwhelm at least your ability to cope, whether that's emotionally, physically, or it may overwhelm the resources that you have. And many moms know this struggle, like, do I put gas in my car? Do I buy groceries? That's an overwhelm of resources.
Yep.
So when I think about that and like how traumatic just becoming a parent could be, and then put on top of it, my past kind of conditioned me to be in a very dominated marriage. And so that also prevented me from really digging into who I was. And I just turned all of that attention to my kids, which can be a lot of pressure to put on kids to carry, without meaning to as a mom. But despite all of that, I think being able to zoom out and be like, all of those things were actually put on my path to get me exactly where I need to be. And so when I talk about the enduring power of hope, which sounds kind of cheesy, that's what I mean. It's like zooming out to have that perspective. I like to use the Wile E. Coyote kind of analogy, that old cartoon. And
Yeah.
I swear that coyote, well, maybe actually now I think I'm getting it backwards. He used to try to drop stuff on the Roadrunner, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was thinking it was the coyote getting smushed for a while, but he used to try to throw things on the Roadrunner.
Yes.
Now, instead of being worried that those things are going to land on you, a piano, a box of TNT, whatever it is, actually changing that into stair steps, for example. That mindset change, I think, is really what I'm talking about when I talk about the enduring power of hope. And then support, and how that keeps us buoyed to actually like sit in that hope and be able to zoom out, because we can't zoom out if we're like, where's my next meal coming from?
Right.
That's how maternal wellness cheerleading was born. And my need and my kind of journey, each lesson that I learned, is why I've become so passionate about connecting with and supporting moms.
Yeah. It's such important work. It's super valuable, as you know. But we need people to follow their callings. So I am so happy to know that you listened and kind of heeded the call, because it is super, super important work. Well, so when you look back on your journey, we talk a lot about lessons here. Like we're always gathering knowledge and wisdom from the mistakes we've made, or from the things that didn't work out the way we wanted to, or the crappy situations we find ourselves in. And all along the way, we're gathering these lessons. I was listening to one of my older episodes where she said, "I hate the word lessons. It feels like so harsh. And why are we have to learn something?" And she's like, "No, it's just wisdom. You're gaining wisdom as you go." And I was like, "Oh, that's a much softer way to like refer to it." But when you look at all of that knowledge and all of that wisdom and those lessons learned, what do you think is the common theme for you?
I have so many themes,
Mm,
so many lessons. I do. So, as you said that, I was like, ooh, that kind of rubs up against that high demand religion
right.
in me, and this idea that we kind of cause anything that happens to us. So, I get where some people are coming with that lessons, but for me, I think it just shows up as symbolism. And maybe that's kind of esoteric, but really, and I know I just said this, but the theme of support and what that actually looks like for mothers, whether it's raising a family in the healthiest way that you know how, navigating domestic abuse, overcoming health challenges, or just embracing like the complexities that come with being a parent. Support has really been the thread that helped me to persevere, because there were times when I wouldn't have been able to make it out of whatever I was going through on my own, whether that was spiritually. I had just gotten overwhelmed. There's that word again, overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
by whatever life had thrown at me. And had I not had a friend to reach down into the pit, actually not even reach down, freaking climb down into the
Yes.
pit and sit with me.
Yep.
It really is about support. So then I've learned that by becoming a champion for other people, we actually get to start to address those deep-seated issues. And to me, it's wild when I hear people talk about the issues that they're really passionate about, because in my brain now, with all of my education and my life experience, every time somebody's like, oh, what about juvenile justice issues? Or what about human and sex trafficking? Or what about the welfare system? Like all these things that people want to talk about. But now I'm like, wait, we need to be talking about domestic abuse. And the thing about domestic abuse is that women need support.
Yes.
So it's a universal thread, not just for me, although it keeps coming up in my life lessons. But sometimes it seems like nobody else sees it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think, listen, I'm a big fan of symbolism and signs. There was something that happened recently. And I, straight went to Google, what's the symbolic meaning of blah, blah, blah. And my daughter, because kids, listen, they observe and pay attention to what you do more than they ever listen to what you say. Time and time again, my children have taught me this. Anyways, my daughter is observing my repeated behavior because I so fundamentally believe in symbolism and the signs that the universe sends us. And she was like, why do you always do that? Why do you think there's a meaning in everything? And I'm like, well, because there is a meaning in everything.
Yeah.
So
I think that is part of our human hope, right? We look to find the meaning because it is there. It's always there when you look.
it's always there. And I will say there are plenty of times when I will say in my deepest, darkest of hours, being able to find the meaning behind whatever element of suffering or pain that I am experiencing, it certainly helps a whole lot to think there's some meaning behind it, right? Like there's got to be some bigger purpose, or even if it's just a lesson, like I'm going to know how not to be in this situation again, like that's valuable. But I think in the times in my life when I've been able to say, okay, I'm going to take this really shitty circumstance that is terrible and I don't want anybody else to ever experience, and I'm going to turn it into good. How do I use this to help other people? And sometimes it is, let me prevent them from ever being in the situation. But more often than not, it's how do I teach them to army crawl out of that situation? And a lot of times it comes back to teaching them how to let themselves be supported.
That's absolutely right. And as you're saying that army crawl,
Mm-hmm.
this image just came up of like a battlefield.
Yep.
And if raising teenagers isn't a freaking battlefield,
Yes.
but
Yes, it
really
is.
life, right? Like life is kind of a battlefield and we're
Yeah.
all out there army crawling. So
Yeah.
in that way, support, yes. And also a really important theme in my life lessons is community,
Yep.
right? So it does kind of serve as the foundation for support. And the more that
Absolutely.
we can bring our community in, the stronger the framework is, the more support we can actually offer.
100%. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that's why we see so many people craving community and looking for it in various different ways, because we have an innate desire to belong to something bigger than ourselves.
that's right. I just heard the opposite. As we're talking, so many Brene Brown things are coming up. As you're sharing about making meaning, I had heard a podcast with Brene Brown and another gentleman who I can't remember his name. Oops. But he was just saying there's another stage of grief, which is finding meaning.
Mm,
So I thought of Brene then, and then I also thought of Brene right now because you just said, I forgot what you said.
it'll come back. What did I say?
Yeah. All right. It'll come back. It'll come back
It
either
will.
somewhere down the line in the show or at 2 a.m.
Yes, quite possibly. Well, so one of the really great questions that I like to ask people, because I just love what comes out of the answers, is when you look back at the younger you pick the stage, whatever age that is, what advice would you give her?
I would advise younger Ashley to trust in her own strength and resilience. I would tell her to find yoga sooner, although I found it at 19, so I don't know how much sooner you can find it, but to, you know, like yoga as life sooner. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean yoga as life as like be obsessive, but understanding that yoga is a metaphor for life and that everything that I do on my mat is really teaching me something about life off of the mat. So I would tell me to kind of click into that a little bit sooner.
Yeah, that's a
I
good one.
would, yeah, I would encourage her to seek support earlier on. And, part of that is like not hesitating to ask for help, but also you have to understand yourself in order to ask for help. You have to understand what it is that you actually need or
Mm-hmm.
are looking for. But in order to get there, I think if there was one thing I could tell myself, you're like, only one, Ashley, narrow it down. I would emphasize the importance of self-compassion.
Oh, yes.
I would remind her that she has everything that she needs, and what she doesn't have yet, she'll learn, and that she's kind of a badass.
Oh, I love that one. That one gave me chills. That's good. Listen, I think self-compassion is probably across the board what every person on the planet needs a little more of. And especially important when we're talking to young people, like to be able to teach them from an early age how to just have some compassion for yourself is so valuable. It serves them so well. Well, and
It does.
you were talking about yoga, and we haven't. Listen, I love yoga. We've not spent very much
Me
time
too.
talking about it here on this
Yeah.
show, so I want to dive into that a little bit more because as you were saying, everything that happens on the mat is really kind of a metaphor for the rest of your life, and I was like, oh yeah, and I thought there is for sure someone listening who is like, I'm sorry, what? And so I want you to explain that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Yoga is definitely another theme of lessons that show up for my life consistently. When I say yoga is life, I kind of am thinking, have you watched Ted Lasso?
Listen, I think I'm the only one on the planet who doesn't really like this show. I tried watching it. I know who he is. I know about the show, but no, I did not watch
Do
it.
you know the football is life?
Uh,
There's one character, he is like just so bubbly. He's the character that's so hard to bring down. And his tagline, he runs around saying football is life. So every time I say yoga is life now, I hear that
you hear
guy
that
like
guy.
with all of the effervescence
I
of
love it.
life. Yoga is life. That just means that integrating the principles of yoga into our everyday life is what leads to that idea of physical fitness or mental clarity, emotional balance, spiritual growth, living harmoniously. That's a big thing for yogis. And we talk about it on the mat, sometimes, yes, in ways that relate to our physical body. I might say, with an exhale, release the tension in the body. And then the next time I say that same cue, I might say, with your exhale, let go of what no longer serves. This is still the breath. We're still doing yoga, but now we're talking about life,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because we're talking about what else you can let go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a great example. Um, because as you were talking earlier, I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then I was like, how would I actually define that? That was beautiful. That was completely helpful.
There's one other thing that when I think of yoga is life, I have this. The word svadhyaya is a Sanskrit word that's the ancient language of yoga. It's almost never spoken anymore, although it is obviously when you're teaching yoga. But as like a conversational language. It doesn't really exist anymore. This word svadhyaya, part of the reason it doesn't really exist anymore is because the translations don't really line up. So the translation that you'll hear the most about svadhyaya is self-discovery. But the true translation actually emphasizes the journey of self-discovery, or the process of learning about yourself that never ends. It is an ongoing process. So yoga obviously introduced me to this idea of svadhyaya, the journey of self-study and self-reflection. And I think that this kind of idea that yoga as a lifestyle and incorporating all of these kind of elements that start to really guide your life. So when I talk about being able to zoom out and look at how things are showing up for me instead of, to me or at me, that takes kind of a healthy svadhyaya practice. It has to start with space and like zooming out to find that positive outlook, because it's always there.
Yeah. Oh, it is always there. We just don't always allow ourselves to see it.
Yeah. And I think some of that meaning that we were talking about before, finding meaning, I think svadhyaya helps you to find the meaning in your experiences. It helps you to reframe the challenges that you have as opportunities for learning and for growth. It kind of is everything to me. This yoga is life, svadhyaya.
Yeah.
If you don't remember anything about yoga except for svadhyaya today, I would be super happy about that.
I love it. Well, and if we were to like shift looking forward, like how do you take everything you've learned and look at what the future holds for you? What do you now believe is possible for your own life?
Oh gosh, now I think possibilities are endless. In fact, I'm a little bit in a stage of life where I'm like, simmer down, sister. You don't have to do all the things.
Yeah.
I definitely want to continue creating positive change for moms. I want to connect with other professionals. Right now, my work is really kind of in supporting motherhood through yoga, birth services. But I would love to see this grow into the holistic health that we talked about earlier, support for moms spiritually, emotionally, physically. We could do a whole nother podcast just about the ways that we need to support moms physically, especially through the perinatal phase. So I have this dream to see this network for moms of empowerment and support just bloom.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you from the conversations I've been having over the course of the year, I am seeing more and more of that in every single woman I talk to. This desire to be connected to that in one way or another. And what's really beautiful is that we're all providing something different. And even when you've got two people that kind of quote unquote do the same thing, their approach is different. The people they speak to is different. Like just, and I see this, it feels kind of like this ripple effect, this web that's growing of one woman being connected to another one being connected to another five. And so I have this sense of that growing, without actually seeing it like tangibly in front of me. So I'm fully behind what you're talking about because I feel it already happening.
That's right. I think we are still in a stage of growing deep roots. I envision this network like a tree, because my business is called Phoenix Transformation Wellness. That's like the mythological bird.
Yep.
And so I envision my network as this nest, the network for empowerment and support together, the nest. See, another acronym for you.
Yep, I like it. I like it.
But the tree does have to have really strong, deep roots before those branches can grow as, outward and full and fluffy and fruit filled as we'd like them to be. So I'm happy to be a part of the root taking stage.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's a great visual. It's a great visual. Well, so tell me this, who is your ideal client? Who do you most love working with?
I am going to kind of surprise the world and myself a little bit to say this, but I love working with millennial moms. Technically, I am an elder millennial. I have been informed. I straddle the generations, but I've got a whole page on my website dedicated to who a Phoenix mom is. And these are moms who every day that I show up to work with them, they inspire me. I might be educating and empowering them, but they inspire me because they are not accepting the status quo of motherhood the way that generations past have. They are informed, they are educated, they are socially aware and willing to pay more upfront to see good things happen. And that's different from generations in the past.
Yes,
These are moms who really care about the future.
I love it. Okay, so for those moms who are listening, how can they find you?
Instagram and my website, www.phoenixtransformations.org, are a great place to start. Whether you're seeking support, interested in becoming a maternal wellness cheerleader, there's information there. Or if you're looking to collaborate on initiatives that support moms, I can be reached through the website or on Instagram.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I am certain you will hear from a lot of people. And I just thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I am so glad that you joined me today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Did you like this episode or did you love it? Inquiring minds want to know. The best way to support this show is to subscribe and leave a review. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.